Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Preserving History and Democracy podcast. My name is Caroline Zamora, and I'm the Chief Deputy County Clerk. This week, we are taking the podcast on tour, and today we have a very special episode. We are actually at the Secretary of State's office here in Santa Fe, and we are joined by our special guest, Mandy Vigil. How's it going, Mandy?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. We drove in this morning. We had our coffee.
It was an early morning. Look, my voice is going to go.
I know. It was an early morning. We're also joined by Janice, Giron, our Bureau of Elections Supervisor. I'm excited to be talking to you all today. Also, I'm really excited that we're taking the podcast on tour, as we're calling it this week. And we're up here in Santa Fe. We're going to do a couple episodes here. And how about we just go ahead and jump right in, yeah?
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Mandy, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, good morning. Welcome, and thanks for bringing the tour to me. I'm excited to be here this morning. This will be my first podcast, so thank you all for including me in this. I'm pretty excited about it.
It's so much fun. Caroline used to have to force me to do it, and now I like doing it.
Yeah, good.
I told you it's fun.
Well, welcome. Sorry the weather is what it is today, but we're happy to have you.
Yes, it was quite windy driving in, but it was all, it's good. We're happy. We're on tour. And so, Mandy, how long have you been here at Secretary of State's office?
That's a great question. Well, actually, I'll share a little bit about me, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So, born and raised in Santa Fe, so, proud New Mexico girl here. And I've actually had the chance to be with the Secretary of State's office since 2011. I've been doing public service for the past 20 years, and I've been lucky enough to be the election director for 8 years. So it's been a minute. Yeah. It seems like it's gone really quickly, but when you stop and look at it, it's been a little bit that I've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've gotten to see all the things change, right?
Yeah, I think it was a very different time when we think about 2011 and when we talk about election administration today. I definitely feel like I've seen different administrations, different approaches, but I think the biggest difference that we've all experienced is just the kind of experience and the protections needed for democracy.
Yeah.
So that's definitely feels still very new and fresh, even though I think we started seeing that in 2020.
Okay. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But before we get into that, I also want to, do you want to tell us anything else about yourself?
Sure. I'll share, I think in this position, I've really had a chance not only to work with great election administrators locally, so in our home state, but beyond that, I've been able to represent New Mexico and other boards and really find an opportunity to advocate for New Mexico voters and for New Mexico administrators at a national level. And so that's been a really huge honor for me. I've learned such a great deal. But beyond that, just having an opportunity to do that is something I never thought would occur. But I've taken it pretty seriously, and it has been really rewarding. And I think it's really helped me grow in this position. And I hope, administrators across the counties will feel that. And beyond that, I hope voters also have seen the positive impacts of that.
I love this. And so we're going to get into this topic a little bit more as we get through the show. How long have you and Janice known each other?
I'll let Janice take a guess at that one.
I honestly, I've been in election since 2004, so at least since 2011. I love your viewpoint on how far elections have come, because I think when I started in 2004, we had we couldn't even really communicate with other counties, let alone besides an email here and there or a landline phone. So it's been great to see the growth there, and the fact that we now get to kind of
we collaborate and
work more as the 33 counties as a whole team rather than everyone separate. That's been a huge change that I've seen. So probably about 20 years.
That sounds like I'm getting older, Janice. But ultimately, I agree. I think when I first started here, I was a compliance officer. Mm-hmm. So I had the luck of new opportunities coming and just growing. And I think elections suck you in pretty quickly. So I definitely stuck around. So I would guess that we got a chance to visit. I was 5 years into it. Before I got to really work with the clerks a little bit more closely. But yeah, it's definitely grown.
It's changed. You wouldn't recognize it, Caroline.
No?
Used to be a lot more boring, Caroline.
Yeah.
That has its pros and cons, I think.
It does sound like it probably has its pros and cons. And, one of the things that I also want to talk about is the team that you have, Mandy. Can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your team?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a small agency here, and so many folks that don't get to visit us don't always understand what's happening on the outside, and I think that's totally fine. I think if we're doing our job, it feels like it should be pretty easy out there, but the Secretary of State's office is a small agency. If we're fully staffed, we only have about 50 people, 50 to 60, to fully support the state of New Mexico in various ways. I run the Bureau of Elections. I have a team of 16 if we're fully staffed, which is not the usual. So we usually do our work with about 14 of us, and that includes myself and 2 excellent deputy directors. So we are responsible for really supporting a lot of stakeholders. The county clerks are our primary stakeholder that we want to support, but beyond that, we also have legislators, political committees, lobbyists, and most importantly, the voters.
Yep. And so just so that our listeners understand, the Secretary of State's office has, similar to the clerk's office, there's the business services side, which is where you go and register, whether it's a political committee or businesses, nonprofits, things like that, those types of business registrations. And then there's, of course, Bureau of Election side. And so when you're saying that the Secretary of State's office only has 50 to 60 people serving the entire state, it just kind of blows my mind on how you all are getting it done.
Yeah. I mean, we have almost that much in our office, and we're only one county. So I don't know how you guys deal with 33 counties plus nationwide issues when we only have one. I mean, I know that we kind of do different things in the aspect of the election administration world, but that's a lot to handle.
It is. I'm really proud of the work that we do here. It's a team effort for sure. And beyond our office, it's certainly also just there's an election community. So we couldn't do it by ourselves, certainly. But I think we have a really strong team here. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really great place to work. So I feel really lucky every day, but it is never quiet. There is never a dull moment. We keep it moving. We have a lot going on at all times. There's never an off election year, as you all know very well. And I think that's part of it. We, as you all know, and I'll share with the listeners, like New Mexico ranked number 1, right? MIT has a performance index in which they look at election administration in a lot of various ways, a lot of different factors that they're considering. And so it's really amazing that we get to be a part of a team that when you look at nationally, we're at the top of that list. So we're doing something right here. And so really, I think the goal is to keep that pace going. And it takes a community. It's lawmakers, it's other stakeholders, it's external organizations that support us in training, federal government, state government. So it is an entire community, and I think that's in part us working so well together. We don't always have to agree, but we can all come together for a common purpose, which I think we've done a great job as a community. Yeah. So. Absolutely. That's the only way. But yeah, it's a small agency for certain. We have a lot going on. And I think to the extent we can continue to grow, we'll only be able to do better.
Yes, absolutely. And so you just gave us our next topic, which is jumping into, we've talked about this on the podcast before several times. But you just, you let our listeners know that we're ranked number 1 in elections by MIT, which is it's a prestigious university, but also it's a nonpartisan university. Like, they are just looking at data. They rank us on a lot of different areas, whether it's paper ballots, whether it's the ease of access. Do we have access for our overseas military voters? I'm trying to think what else is on that index. There's a lot on that index that they're ranking us on. Do you want to go ahead and dive into that a little bit more and kind of tell our listeners a little bit more about that?
So I don't have all of the factors in front of us, right? But there are hundreds, over 100. And ultimately, I think the intention is to really just look at like what are all of the accessibility opportunities you have for voters? What are all the security mechanisms that you have in place to protect the integrity of the election? And beyond that, like what are the modernization efforts that you've been making over time? And how does that compare to all of your peers at a national level? And I think we have a lot of different varieties of voters to encourage them to participate. You want to vote by mail? You want to come in person? We want you to register. You can do that online. You can do that physically through a hard copy document. You can do that through same-day registration.
Some days, like I think about it, and there are some states that like don't have early voting, that just have
there's 1 day of voting.
So if you don't get out of work that day or your kid is sick that day, you're not voting. And that still kind of blows my mind because in New Mexico, we have 28 days of early voting. And then we also have absentee voting. And then we also have the...
Well, and I think absentee voting is different based on what state you live in, right?
Yes.
Some states have, you have to have basically permission from a doctor in order to get an absentee ballot. So I think...
that is not the case in New Mexico.
That's something that a lot of voters or the general public might not realize is that laws vary from state to state. So we're not the same. If you move here from New York, it might be, I don't know the laws in New York, but just for instance, it might be that there you couldn't get an absentee ballot unless you had a doctor's note, really. But here, it's a no excuse state. So
Thank
you can
goodness
just
for
request
that.
it. Yes, agree. I think I also think that we are seeing numbers kind of increase with absentee because of the permanent absentee list, which I think is also really great because you sign up for that permanent absentee or vote by mail list, and every election you're going to get your ballot. And you don't need to go and request it every election. It's an automatic process. And I think that is making it easier for voters, which is always important. But also voters, it's so much more accessible. They're like, hey, it's sitting on my counter. Let me go ahead and fill out my ballot and send it back in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important.
So you mentioned something, and you keep setting us up for like our next question, which I think it's like we sent you a script or something. You mentioned modernization in elections. Where do you see election modernization moving toward in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow. If I had a magic wand?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great question, Janice. I mentioned earlier I get to represent New Mexico on other national boards, which is something I really appreciate. I get to learn from all of my peers across the country. And I will share, it's not partisan. When you're talking about election administrators, we really are just talking about how to get the work done and how to do it better. And so I've learned a great deal from some of those peers. And so some of the ideas that I've gathered are really tied to outreach. So I definitely appreciate what you all are doing and trying to get information out to the public. I don't think that's something we all were thinking about before 2020. We kind of just did our work quietly, and I'm happy to see kind of some spotlight put on all of the great work that's being done in election administration. But as you all know, that comes with some challenges. So I think outreach is really critical, and figuring out how can we get out to voters that or even individuals that aren't registered. How can we get participation to expand here? We have a lot of rural and Native communities here. And so sometimes some of these great efforts towards technology, they can't always take advantage of it. And so figuring out how to reach not only, the majority of the voters we serve, but the minority also. So looking at language barriers, I would really like to expand ways that individuals that don't, English isn't their first language or it's not their preferred language, that we can really provide some additional resources to them in that mechanism. So I think voter outreach is huge. There's always new technology. And we're always looking at maintaining security. So I think we're always going to have security at the forefront, looking at ballot drop boxes. How can we do that differently? How can we look at the new technology? What are ways we can get information out to the public? So not just about participation, but once it's all said and done, hey, what just happened? how can I understand what's happening in the background so that I feel really comfortable and confident? And so how can we tell our story in a way that is easy to understand? Because I think elections can be complex if you don't work with them every day. There's some nuances that, the average voter is not going to need to kind of burden themselves with. But how can we put that out in a way that they can easily understand it? And how can we engage younger voters? I have a daughter, I have young nephews, they're amazing. They learn a lot from me because of my profession, but not everybody has that same experience. And so I think it's really critical that we get the next generation participating, believing, and helping us learn how to serve them.
Yeah. And, I really think our office in Doña Ana County is so unique in that, one, we have Cynthia, who's behind camera today because Jacob couldn't join us. But Cynthia is our communications coordinator. Not all offices have that. They're small offices, but we have our own comms coordinator. And quite honestly, before I came into government, I did marketing and PR for a decade. And so a lot of the times my brain is automatically, okay, how am I going to communicate this? And so I just kind of automatically go into that. When I think of we're getting started, our comms information for this next upcoming election, and I'm looking at the flyer and I'm like, okay, we have a lot of information to put on one page because I have one page to communicate as much as possible. And so I think that's really unique to what our office is able to do, but also how we can support the Secretary of State and how we can support other counties. This past week, we were sharing information with one of the counties up north because they were asking for what flyers we had for voter registration, and so I was able to share that with them. And so I think counties sharing information that way, I think is really important. I don't know, Janice, what do you think?
I think that's a good point. I think the more counties are on the same page, the more easily understood elections will be for voters and the general population. Then they're not getting mixed information. It might not be mis or malinformation, but sometimes because our counties are unique, we tend to do things a little differently. And I think the more streamlined we are, whether it be comms or just general voter registration, the better off the voters will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought up something really important, Mandy, and that is how do we take the voter information and voter education to younger people? I know in our county, we do a really great job with Elections 101, and we get into high schools, and we try to meet every junior and senior in our county. We try to, and we have help from, other parties like the League of Women Voters who help us do that. And then also we do really fun things like bringing in the elementary school, and they did their own little ballot, and that was a lot of fun. And they even did their own certification, and they had their own little board meeting to certify their election.
So cool.
It was very fun. Yeah. But I think those opportunities, which again, our office is lucky we get to do that. We have the staff to do it. But not all counties have. Some counties have 3. It's their clerk, their chief deputy, and 1 doc tech. And so they might not have the opportunity to even get out of the office because they're doing so much inside the office.
You raise a really good point. I mean, even here, right? I've always had this idea and a wish. I have a wish list. And, mock election in some of our local schools has always been on that list. And so, anytime there's a chance to support a county, I don't see us, unfortunately, at this point in time having those resources here, but it's really critical, right? So anytime another county or another state or another administrator has kind of already created a program, I think collaboration and sharing that information, it really goes a long way. Don't reinvent the wheel. If there's something already that exists that you can just tailor. And there's a lot of great organizations out there that see the need, see the importance. Definitely. And so we've been able to partner with folks, but I think that's such a great way to educate folks in a fun way.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when I first started in elections, I never imagined collaborating, honestly, with people from other states. But now we've partnered with U.S. Digital Response, the EAC. Who else? Caroline.
What is Tina's organization? I forget.
Election Center.
Election Center.
And
Safe and Secure Elections. Great
some of the
organization.
administrators in other states just have brilliant ideas and they're willing to share, and so that we can tailor it to what our needs are. So that's something for the whole state to consider, other counties to consider if they're looking for different ways to do things, or improve their resources, or their, what's the word I'm looking for?
Outreach? I'm guessing.
Education.
No, voter education. There's really great resources even outside of the state that they can use.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think this is a really great opportunity for maybe how the clerks can start sharing more information, because, whether it's our office or another office that's able to go to these conferences, but bring back these ideas, and how do we use them with each other, and how do we give that information to other clerks that, again, may not have the resources in their county to go and learn all this new information.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Well, and I think, also the Secretary of State's office, I don't think there's ever been a time when we've called Mandy or anyone here and said, hey, we have this idea. What do you think of it? Is there any way you can help us with it? That they've been like, no, absolutely not. So I think it's good to bring them into the fold too, because they're a great resource for all of the county clerks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's no other way to say it. Like, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important that we share and we talk, and we're on the same page.
I think it's super helpful for learning from one another, right? Someone might be dealing with the same thing and they didn't realize it. So it helps us stay on a consistent message so that voters aren't confused, or we're not kind of escalating the issue unintentionally. But beyond that, I think we all, whether we realize it or accept it or not, like, we impact one another. So a decision made at any level within the state of New Mexico in elections, you're going to hear about it eventually, and you're going to have to probably respond. And we want that to be positive. We want that to be something good that we're all sharing on message. But I think it ties into security, right?
Yes.
We all use similar systems, if not the same system, different processes, but generally all getting to the same endpoint. And so if there's something that another county is doing that a voter is hearing about, they might go to you and want to understand it. And you can't speak to that in a positive way or a helpful way if you have no idea what's happening. And so that's kind of the same thing. And I think that's part of our role, is to help coordinate with all of you, so that we can try to just share the good stuff and make sure confusion is limited, for sure.
So you said another magic word to go into our next topic. Let's dive into election security, because as you said, between 2011 or 2004, when you all started, and where we are today, how have you seen election security change?
Ultimately, I think it's drastically changed. I mean, I think security, when we're talking about cybersecurity, has always been on, it's just a part of doing public business, a part of working in a government agency. So I don't think cybersecurity was really not thought about. I just think it kind of needed a full revamp once we saw all of the attention that was coming to election administration all at once. I think we can do anything with time, with resources, but when you don't have time and space and you're just reacting, I think that's what we were faced with. I want to say in 2016 it really started, and then we saw a huge shift in the public perception of administration in 2020. And that then just created a new requirement of election administrators to be experts in all things security, creating cybersecurity teams, engaging with the federal government, and also training differently. And I think that has extended really to a lot of physical security considerations, which was never front of mind for me if I look back on things in 2016. It was really about just getting the work done, making sure it was done accurately. And now we're thinking about this bigger picture. How do we keep everyone safe and keep them encouraged to participate? We don't want anyone to feel any sort of concern when they're going to the polls. And so it's drastically changed from my perspective.
I think definitely. I think the biggest thing is probably, without going into detail, safety at polling locations. Not because it's a huge secret, but I think it's a sore subject for a lot of people. I mean, in 2020, we saw an increase, I think, in things happening at the polls that shouldn't happen. The secure containers. So it's a constant, I think, I don't want to say battle, but it's just a mindset, I guess, that we're now having to put ourselves in that we didn't have to put ourselves in before, because we didn't have the concerns in 2016 that we had really beginning in 2020. It's kind of gotten heavy, and I hate to think that voters would go to the polls and feel intimidated by anything. I want them to be able to go there and feel safe, like they can cast their ballot and not have to worry about voter intimidation of any sort.
So I can tell you when I started, which was only a few years ago, what I already knew about elections, and of course coming into elections and really like diving into it, my understanding is that luckily we have paper ballots, and so that is one level of security. But also, Secretary of State's office takes care of a lot of the cybersecurity side, which is really important. So from the county level, when we talk about security, we're talking about, are we communicating with all the law enforcement agencies in our county? Are we ensuring that we're training our presiding judges? Are we ensuring that we're communicating with all the organizations such as the schools, the community centers, anywhere that we're going to have a polling location at? And so when I think of security, election security, I don't automatically jump to cybersecurity, which is sometimes what I think the public narrative is. And so I think it's important for our listeners to know that when we talk about security, we're really talking about a lot of things that are happening in the background that they don't know, and we want them to not know. I want a voter to just show up and get their ballot and vote and go on about their day. I don't want anything interrupting them throughout the process.
Yes, but I also think that now with access to more information at any given time, and some of that information being
misinformation, malinformation,
that it's really important that it's a conversation that we have, so that they realize that they understand that we make their safety a priority.
Yes.
I think those are really good points. I think it's just another piece of where we can be proud of the work that we do here and feel really confident. So, what I would share with the viewers is they should absolutely feel confident in participation, in particular here in New Mexico. We have, as you mentioned, a lot of safeguards in place as to the different ways we kind of attack security here, and that there's cyber mechanisms, there's paper ballots, right, so that we can always, and we do go back and look at things after and ensure our systems are accurate.
Y'all ever knew how many times we count those ballots?
Ad nauseum, right? Like it's an ongoing process of ensuring everything is functioning, and I think we've had to do a lot more than we had to do in the past in telling the story. I don't think the mechanisms have changed. There's always been really good practices here, but being able to share that out loud with the public, I think, has been the piece that we're growing into. And so everyone should feel definitely confident in participating here, but reach out. If there's something we can share differently, if there's something you'd like to hear about, I think we all will nerd out anytime we're given the chance.
Yes.
This is one of those examples, but we are more than happy to share how it works here so that everyone can feel good about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think an important thing I mentioned, security instances going up once 2020 hit. Those instances were all instances, honestly, that I heard about in other states through the internet or whatever source may be. I honestly did not hear anything about New Mexico.
Next topic I want to get into, we're going to try to wrap this episode up. I want to talk about your hopes for the future. Where do you see us going and your hope for the future, for your office, for everything, for...
I love a magic wand. You guys have given
You
it to
have
me
a magic
twice already. This is so fun. I have a lot of hope for the future. I think that, we've all kind of been tested in ways that we maybe didn't realize until we were deep in it. But I'm always, really excited at all of our election officials and the community and just being able to respond very professionally with, I think we all have passion for the work that we do, which is really incredible to be a part of. So I just see things getting better. I certainly see growth coming our way. I think that the voters have higher expectations of the process and the understanding of the process, which I think we have risen to that occasion and will continue to do that. So I continue to look forward to just being able to share all of the good work that we do. You hear the term election hero. I hear a lot of folks say, you're kind of in a thankless job. And I think that goes along with public service, but we do it because we care, because we see a lot of value, and it really is critical for democracy.
Yes.
Like, what we do here has such purpose that I think it keeps us motivated, keeps us moving forward, keeps us learning so that we do it better every time. And I think we've continued to incrementally get better over every election, and I absolutely see that continuing. I'd like to see more resources, certainly put into elections. I think all of us do a lot with what we have.
I'll say it. I think that the Secretary of State's office should be fully funded. Why they're not fully funded blows my mind, but you all should be fully funded. That way our counties can also have the resources that they need.
I certainly appreciate that. I wholeheartedly support that. The majority of what we receive when it comes to election funding specifically is shared with the counties, right? And what that gives voters is a uniform experience. We don't want a county that has less to be providing less to their voters. And likewise, there's no other mechanism to ensure uniformity. And so I think it's an excellent structure. I don't want to see us move away from that. I'd like to see it continue, but it needs the support and the funding to make sure we can continue that. We will, continue to do more. The more we receive, the more we advocate for, modernize the system, right? Our systems are getting a little older. Like anything else, you want to see something new and improved. So anytime we get something, we're going to put it right back in to the voter experience, whether that's more security, more training for poll workers, more training for election officials. You get somebody new, it takes time to learn how an election functions, right? So being able to just train at all levels, poll workers, staffing, head leadership, I think that's all really critical to keep pouring resources into. And I think we have a really good framework, but I would just keep building on that. And then technology, right? Just being able to do this type of effort, we wouldn't be able to do it if you didn't bring it to us. So I really appreciate that. And seeing more of this type of work moving forward, I think would be my dream world.
Well, y'all, I think that's it for this episode. Preserving History and Democracy podcast on tour this week. We're really excited. Thank you, Mandy, for having us and for allowing us to kind of take over the conference room here at your office. We appreciate it. Thank you, Janice, for driving us up here today. Appreciate you.
I had to hand it over to Cynthia halfway, so thanks, Cynthia.
And then as soon as you handed it over to Cynthia, it got really windy. for Cynthia.
I knew it was coming.
Right?
Thank you for having me. Thank you all for making your way up here. Safe travels home.
Thank you.
And beyond that, like, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. We
It
appreciate
means a
you
lot.
too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we
Thank
appreciate you all.
Thank you for all your support.
2004.
I know. It feels like it's been forever, but it feels like it was just yesterday.
It does. Somehow it's both. I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. My name is Caroline Zamora. I'm the Chief Deputy County Clerk. I want to thank our special guest, Mandy Vigil, with the Secretary of State's Office. I want to thank Janice Giron, our Bureau of Elections Supervisor. I also want to thank Cynthia Diaz, our Communications Coordinator, who is behind camera today. And also thank you to Jacob Slaughter, who edits all of our amazing content, producer extraordinaire. And be sure to check us out on all of our socials, wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast. You can listen to this on Spotify. You can watch on Spotify. I believe we're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can check us out. You can also watch us on YouTube. And so we'll see you next time.